This is a short video about making your own earth plaster. We've got quite a big house and we can't afford a proprietary system or to afford to do a good lime plaster, so we're going to make our own clay plaster. This is 6 tons of clay soil, clay subsoil, which we've got from a friendly local farmer. As you can see in the lovely spring sunshine, it's now drying out. It's been rather moist up until now. And this is going to be the base of our plaster. As you can see, it's full of stones, but we'll get rid of those. And, so that's pretty cheap, almost free. And then we've got some nice sand to go with it. Now it's important to use washed sand so you don't get the salts and the efflorescence coming out in the face of the plaster. So this is a coarse sand for the base coat, and then over here we've got nice fine sand for the top coat. We made some samples before we started. There were 2 sorts of clay on the site, so I took a sample of each one, and you can see our samples on the wall here. This was a yellow clay, pure, and with 1 part sand and with 2 parts sand. And you can see as they dried, there's lots of cracking, so we thought that's no good. And then this is a redder clay that we found, which is pure, 1 part clay, 1 part sand, 1 part clay, 2 parts sand. And you can see that's a pretty good mix. That's been there a couple of months with the rain burn on, only tiny little hairline cracks, and we can fix that while we're plastering because clay is very forgiving. Okay. So while it was still too cold for the clay to dry on its own, I was taking up a sort of a metal tray full and putting it in the ray burn just to help dry it out. It's just easier to play about with really. But this is what we've got here. The weather's lovely now, so I've got the pile uncovered, and hopefully over the next few months while we're doing this job, the clay will dry out nicely and we won't have to bother with this artificial drying and stuff. So there you go, so I've got a bucket full, now I'm just going to go and throw that in the cement mixer and break it up a bit. So we'll chuck it into the cement mixer just to break it up a bit. And turn that on for a little while. It's quite dusty, so it's good to wear a mask for this kind of thing. So I'll put it on my homemade sieve, which is just a bit of wire grill that I found. Just work it through. You can see all the big stones coming out now. And then you can hit it with a hammer, you can hit it with a wire brush to break up the bits of clay like that. Because otherwise you'll be standing all day doing that, you'll be there forever. Left is a load of clay particles and some small stones. What I'm going to do now is try and sieve it again into a smaller sieve, just so I can save some fine stuff for the top coat, so we get a nice finish. So we just chuck it in there, give that a rub, let the small stuff through, and then that goes down into this bucket. And over the course of the day, I've got lots of this coming out, which would be great for a top coat. Okay. So don't put it all through the fine sieve, you want to keep some fine stuff behind. But now I've got about 1/3 of a bucket. We're going 2 to 1, so if I fill this bucket up, that should give us the right ratio. This is the coarse sand because we're doing the base coat. And that will just about do it. And then we'll put that back in the mixer for a bit, just to mix it up.
Yeah.
Okay, we've now got our mix of sand and clay. A few small stones, but it doesn't matter because it is the base coat. Wait till you see the wall. And then we're going to add a load of water and put it in the whisk and make the plaster. It's always good to have things like empty cider things, because then you can hold water. So it needs a fair bit. You want it to be a sort of a moussey texture, as if you're whipping up, well, mousse basically. Egg whites are no good because this is a lot heavier than egg whites. I'm not going to turn it off now. This is just a normal SDS drill with a whisk attached to it. And you can see now that if I mix it, it starts to look a bit moussey and whippy. So as you get near to that point, just add a little bit of water at a time, because anyone who's seen me build a earth before, it's much easier to add water than it is to take it away. So off we go to our wall. So, this is our wall. It used to be concrete or cement plastered, and over the years it's done a lot of damage. You can see in various places where the faces of stones have come off and so on. Very important to have a breathable plaster. That's why we couldn't just use something like gypsum or cement to go back on this. You've got to look after these old houses. You can see it is a bit of a mess, so the base coat won't go on very neatly, and it is a bit of a faff because you've got to get into all those little holes and cracks and fill them all up. But that's all right, because we'll get the top coat to smooth all that off, and clay's very forgiving. You can always come back to it a day, 2, 3 days later with a damp sponge and work it again. So all we just do is to get this base coat started, and off we go. Clay has got amazing suction properties. If you put it on a dry wall, it will suck whatever moisture's out of the wall and then fall off. So you've got to wet the wall first. Doesn't have to be soaking wet, but a good amount of wetness, and you can apply it. Now as you're doing this base coat, because the wall's a bit of a mess, as much of it will end up on the floor as will end up on the wall first time round. Okay, so we've got plastic on the floor, because you'll see that a lot of it will end up on the floor. We can just reuse it again. Now you'll see from this I am no plasterer, and you'll see from the quality of the water that I'm no plasterer, but it gets easier as time goes on, and like I say, clay is very forgiving. So we're going to try and just press in for a moment. We're not kind of smooth out at the minute, we're just trying to fill it all and get it all stuff into the gaps there. You can see it all falling off, and that's alright, but you can also see that it's going on as well. Now you imagine this stuff is sieved down to about 15mm, and although that's not a mirror, that finish, you imagine when we've got that top coat sieved down to about 5 or 6mm, you can get it as good as you want it. Now we're only going to go for a fairly rustic look. We're not interested in super straight lines. This is an old house. It's got its physical variations, and it's got these rough walls, and that's fine. I'll try and make it fairly nice, but it doesn't have to be a work of art. When you're plastering, so I've been told, start off at the top and work across and down. So I'm just doing a bit of a section at a time here, and then when I've got to the floor, I'll go back up to the top and keep working across. Now you've got to fill these big holes, but you've also got these big smooth stones, and that makes it quite difficult to get adhesion. So if you get the chance, try and work around them first, because the clay will stick to the clay much easier than it will stick to the stone, if that makes sense. So surround that stone with clay, and as you can see here, look, if it falls off, pick it up and whack it back on again and watch it fall off again. Then once you're done with the whole wall, you can see where I wasn't too good at the top there, because I was just starting off. But this will forgive you for a long time. You can always just dampen down the trowel and keep working it. You can put bits in where there are straps and just keep on working it like that. And it is forgiving, because gypsum will go off in a few hours. If you haven't got it right by then, you're screwed. Whereas this stuff, tomorrow morning I'll come back, damp decorator sponge, get it nice and smooth, and then put the tooth through it to provide a base for the top coat. And that will be in the next film. Thank you.